Hello and good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So today we'll be having a very interesting session where we basically cover the key highlight events for today as well as for the week. And then we do technical analysis to try and understand the prevailing market structure. And once we cover these, hopefully everyone will trade from an informed perspective. So if you have any questions related to the presentation, feel free to type that in the comment section. And once you join in, kindly say hi on the comment section. And we appreciate every single one of you joining this session. So first things first, we'll be starting with a disclaimer. This is not investment advice. It is not a recommendation to trade. So you should always do your own due diligence and practice proper risk management. So let's begin with the economic calendar. And hello, Richie. Thank you for joining in. So from the economic calendar, as you can see, Monday is usually a very slow day. We don't have many things happening. So from the morning, we had Business NZ Services Index of New Zealand coming in at 47.1, slightly below the previous reading of 47.2. Then we had the New Zealand FPI came in at 0.6% positive. This was better than the previous reading of negative 0.5%. Also a highlight that inflation is still a considerable problem, despite inflation expectations coming in lower than expected at 2.33% compared to the previous reading of 2.5%. So SCCO Consumer Climate Survey, in this case from Switzerland, at negative 38, same as the previous reading, but slightly better than the expected number. And as we peruse through the rest of the day, I believe we will be focusing on EU economic forecasts, probably at midday. Then later on, we'll be looking at building permits in Canada, and then two speeches from Fed members, one from Fed member Jefferson at 4 p.m., and another one from Fed member Mester still at 4 p.m. So later on at 7:45 p.m., this is when we'll be having the SNB chairman Jordan speaking. So that's the key highlights on the economic calendar for the day. But then there are events currently happening in the markets. One of the most important events happening today is from OpenAI, where it's set to make an announcement later in the day. So it's a big day and there's a lot of speculation around the announcement. OpenAI has a live streamed announcement planned for 10 a.m. On Monday, but it's trying to keep expectations under control. So the company is describing the event as a chance to demo some ChatGPT and GPT-4 updates, and this came from CEO Sam Altman. So promoted the event with the message, no GPT-5, not a search engine, but we have been hard at work on some new stuff we think we'll do with love. Feels magic to me. So it's a highly anticipated event later in the day. So we know exactly what they will be announcing. But one key thing to notice is that OpenAI is a private company. There's a big investment by Microsoft into OpenAI. So the news might be impactful to Microsoft stock. And at the same time, there's potential speculations that there could be a partnership between Apple and OpenAI. So that's one of the other key highlights. So the other key highlight is about GameStop. If you've been following GameStop, then you know that it's back on the news. So if you know anything about Roaring Kitty, this is the person who started the GameStop movement. He discouraged a post after being offline for hours, and that has driven out of speculation into the stock. So having seen that tweet this morning, and this tweet 8 hours ago, he basically posted just a chair. You can see the last post he had done was June 19, 2021, and now he made a post here, and now we will be expecting to see a lot of volatility in GameStop shares. So if you look at GME, it wasn't doing particularly well, but then as we head for the rest of the day, there's a good chance that we'll be seeing some good activity. So one of the highlights, as you can see, the stock was down 3%. If you look at the year-to-date performance, it's up 4.74%, and all this is being driven by price action that started early this morning, where the stock is set to open with a big gap up 21% from the previous close on Friday. So that's among the key highlights for the day. And of course, for the week, the most important data event will be the US CPI, and this will be happening on Wednesday at exactly 3:30 p.m., where it's estimated the price of consumer goods in the US increased by 0.3% for the core. And also for the overall CPI, we're expecting an increase of 0.4%, which will drive the annual CPI to 3.4%, down from the previous reading of 3.5%. So this is the most anticipated event of the week, and we expect our volatility will be in gold, as well as US dollar pairs, and of course the US indices. So that being said, I think now we can transition and look at the currencies, try to understand what are the prevailing market structures before we go for other asset classes. So good morning, Harun. Good morning, Ikejak. Good morning, Rosrin, as well as Lamik Buire. Thank you guys for joining the session. So let's keep it going. So from the technical side of things, I believe the key highlight last week was the price action movement in gold. Last week on Thursday, we highlighted this range, and we were tracking potential breakout. So eventually the breakout happened here. Market had a pullback and then continued in that direction with a good high identified on Friday at around 23.78. And then from then, we have been seeing the price of gold moving back downwards. So we expected to see at least some form of support here. Didn't happen. The market cruised right through it. So now, potentially, if gold extends this weakness, there's a good chance that we see a retest of 23 to 27. But then we have already broken out of this bearish cycle. So we had, I would say, 3 straight weeks where gold prices were moving back downward with a bottom at 22.77. Then since bouncing from here, we have had quite a good rally. And as you can see, we had a limit here working as the resistance. Eventually, the market broke that price level on Thursday, rallied, extended the rally on Friday, and now as we are seeing price pulling back, 23.52 was a key price level. You can notice the last time price was trading here. But then, as you can see, the price action seems to be strongly bearish. So some further downside momentum could be expected for the day, going down to 23.27. So we have low volatility in the day. So for the dollar index, we have seen some strong recovery followed by a weakness last Friday. So this recovery happened for about 4 days before the market broke this line, moved back downwards. And then Friday was just a sideways movement, being a similar sideways momentum today. So we say that we have also seen the USD JPY moving back to the areas that were previously used by Bank of Japan to intervene in the market. So the first intervention happened here, followed by the second intervention that caused this massive momentum. But as you can see, speculators are betting against the Bank of Japan and driving prices back to previous levels. So the thing is, if this was the first intervention at 160.178, then the second intervention happened at 157.969. The real question we should be asking ourselves is that, is the Bank of Japan going to wait until USD JPY gets to the previous levels before they intervene again? So are they trying to strengthen the JPY, or are they just trying to defend the price level? So that's the big question that every investor is trying to answer today. And in this case, the next intervention will be key in identifying a trend. If you have 2 points, it's a line, 3 points, it's a trend. So in this case, the moment we see the next intervention, whether it will be at 157.99 or even 160.178 or even more on the previous two, that will be key in determining the motive of the Bank of Japan, the Ministry of Finance of Japan. So they decided to go for an intervention around 156.258. Then it will show that there is a ladder. They are consistently trying to push prices lower. But then if they wait until you get to the previous levels, then they are basically defending a certain price level. So that will be a key theory in trading this week, and we expect to see at least some form of activity or announcement from the Bank of Japan, considering that price is aggressively moving against them or towards the previous price. So for today, Monday seems like a quiet day, so we could be seeing the USD JPY extending this rally to at least 156.258. So Euro USD found a very strong resistance here. Remember the speculation we had last week. The market would bounce from this area and keep going down. So we had these several instances where the market was finding resistance here and dropping each time before the strong rally on Thursday that broke the trend line, and now we're seeing the opposite of this trend. So what we are seeing is the Euro USD breaking this trend line for the first time. This breakout is expected to bring in some much needed momentum for Euro USD traders. Of course, the short-term intraday target will be the highest price that we saw last week or in the last 2 weeks. So at least an extension here from the current price level up to 1.08119. So pound USD is also really struggling. So after finding a bottom here, we had a nice bounce and price headed back to the trend line. And since then, we have been seeing more of a sideways momentum. So potentially now the pound could go for this area here, especially considering the weak dollar in the market. So New Zealand USD eventually had the breakout. So after getting out of this flag formation, I remember we covered this last week. So we had the flagpole, the flag formation, and then the breakout. So after the breakout, you can see we didn't quite achieve the previous high. So the highest price we got was right here. So the previous high was much higher than the current level, meaning that the breakout happened well, but failed to materialize into a new leg up. And now we expect the prices to be pulling back downwards. So for USD, this is the Swiss franc. We saw a nice bounce here. That is 2 weeks ago. So from the H1 chart last week, it was more of a recovery followed by a pullback, and this is the current level. So it doesn't seem at all likely that we'll be having as much volatility. So it's more of a market that is simply moving silently. So I'll be watching the extreme levels. If the market was to get to this area, then it would make more sense to be looking for an opportunity. And of course, the highest price that we saw on Friday. So Friday's high and Friday's low seem like a nice areas to be looking for currently, not the current price level. So as for gold, we have already covered this. The expectation that is we continue seeing a nice pullback that extends all the way down to 23.27. So US equity indices are strong. They are almost making 100% recovery. So the previous high was right here. Remember, it was an all-time high for the Dow Jones. And now, after the bearish momentum that lasted about 4 weeks, we have seen the market recovering quite strongly. Now, there's a small space to go before we get to a new all-time high. So this week, I would be very bullish on US equity indices. So for Dow Jones, I expect the market to make a full recovery to 39,988. This is around 40,000. So 40,000 is now the new target, hoping that this bullish momentum continues this week. So SP 500 also doing the same, almost making 100% recovery. So remember, the previous all-time high was 18,168, and now it's trading very close to that level. So it's the same thing for the, that's the NASDAQ. So it's the same thing for the SP 500. So from the forward chart, this is how it looks like. So if I remove all this noise, then you notice that the recovery has been quite sharp, almost V-shaped. So the correction is now behind us, and now there's a good chance the market heads for a new all-time high, which is not very far off. So a rally this week of about 1% should see us testing new grounds or new all-time highs. So a very interesting stock market this year. So Brent oil made a quick rally on Thursday, followed by some sideways, on Wednesday, followed by some sideways activity on Thursday. Then on Friday, failed to materialize to a previous high. So in this case, pulling back downwards, and now we are seeing a resurgence of bullish momentum. So in this case, what we saw is that there was an expectation to see oil prices getting to $85, but then pulled back downwards and then formed a low, and the new low is much higher than the previous one. So if you compare the two lows, notice that this trend has not changed. So this was the trend here. The bottoms or the lows were following this trend line, but now you can see the strong bounce happening here with a bullish engulfing, indicating a strong entry by buyers. And now in the last 3 hours, what we are seeing is more of bullish momentum, similar to what we see in 3 white soldiers candlestick formation. So there is a good chance that we should be testing the previous highs that we saw last week on Friday. So there's a good chance that we continue enjoying some bullish momentum today. So as for Bitcoin, we are seeing very strong bullish momentum. It's becoming more of a trend that Mondays we tend to see Bitcoin being very strong, then weak on other days. So right now, in the last 3 hours, we have seen a big change, and this is about $2,163 gain within 3 hours. So this is quite a good performance, and we could be seeing an extension of performance for the day. So being up 3.25%, we could be seeing some further upside potential, especially considering that we are just coming from this bottom here, which seemingly might be forming another inverted head and shoulder pattern, where if you take these as the neckline, then we would be having the first shoulder, then the head, and then the second shoulder happening right here. And now the market bouncing strongly, looking to complete the pattern at this area here, which is around $67,000 per Bitcoin. So Euro stocks are also very bullish. So we saw it happening. So market going up twice, facing resistance, and then on the third time, breaking this resistance, and now it's looking at a new all-time high for the Euro stocks. So a good chance that we get to 51.23, more likely that this week we'll be retesting that area here. And if you look at other European equity indices, such as the French 40 index, then the bullish momentum may have ended as a result of hitting this major resistance area here. So a very strong rally that got to the previous high, and you can see this area showing out of resistance and the market changing direction more after getting to this area. So we'll be watching this closely to see if there's another attempt to break the area, and hopefully we get to enjoy further bullish momentum. So remember, from the daily chart, the momentum is still bullish, so don't take the signal from the short-term back here. There's a good chance that the market continues. So Asian equities are still making the impressive rally we have seen from the month of April through today. And now we are looking at a third straight day of bullish momentum. And of course, from the 4-hour chart and 1-hour chart, it seems more likely that we're seeing an extension of bullish rally. For the China index, we see this range extending this way. So there is some form of consolidation. So in this case, I would be very patient and wait to see when the market breaks either of the two trend lines with more bias on the side. So if you look at the daily chart, you can see it has been a struggle, but a strong rally this year. And there's a good chance that we see far more upside. But then as long as the market remains within this range, it makes more sense to be patient and wait for the breakout. So lastly, as we approach the end of the presentation, we have the Spanish IBEX also doing a similar thing. So for anyone who is familiar with the cup and handle formation, it's usually a continuation pattern. So in this case, we have had our cup here followed by the handle, and now it seems that the market will eventually break. So the breakout could be massive because it could be the basis of another leg. So in this case, watching this price action area would be very important to observe when the breakout potentially happens and take advantage of the spike that follows after that. So lastly, we have the UK 100 index, which has been making news this year after four new all-time high. So notice this was the all-time high. So after breaking, we've had a very strong rally here. And if you count the number of days, we have had consecutive bullish momentum. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and today is the 7th day where we are seeing this strong bullish momentum. So for now, it makes more sense to continue following this trend. So after this pullback, you can see Monday has been quite positive. It opened slightly slow, but then in the last hour, we saw some good activity, and this could continue for the rest of the day. And that's it from my side. I'll be checking to see if you guys have any questions. So there's a good question to check on Audi USD. Okay, let's start with the question from JSquad. Why is USDT more stable than Bitcoin? It's basically a currency that mirrors the dollar. So its stability basically implies the stability of the dollar. So yes, Bitcoin is more volatile than the dollar, but in the long run, we have seen that Bitcoin has served as a much better store of value compared to the dollar. So why British pound be worth more than 180 euros in exchange of it? Sorry for that. So the pound is usually stronger than the euro, and its strength is not based on the exchange rate. It's more of the economics behind it. So yes, we are seeing the Euro USD at 1.07, and historically, the pound has always been valued more. This is 1.25, and especially considering what we are seeing with monetary policy, if the European Central Bank goes for the array rate cuts, then the euro could weaken further, and that would mean that the pound would gain more ground against the euro. I don't know if this is a question or comment to enload Bitcoin over Ethereum. Can you clarify? So there's a question on Swiss franc and New Zealand dollar. I think we have already covered that. We have covered USD trading against the Swiss franc. We mentioned that these are the two ranges to be watching: the highest price on Friday and the lowest price on Friday. So once the market gets to either of the two, then it might become interesting to look for an opportunity rather than looking for an opportunity in between. So the question on New Zealand USD, we already covered this, and having seen that the market failed to form a new all-time high, then in this case, we become quite bearish. And if you observe the current market formation, especially in the 15-minute chart, this is what we are seeing: market adding more pressure towards downside. So further downside momentum is to be expected for the New Zealand USD pair. So there's a question on Bosnian mark. I don't know if we cover that. Then there's another one on Audi USD. So AUD USD has been one interesting pair, having seen this resistance play out here. So as we covered last week, this was a nice entry for a short selling position. So it played out nicely the first time and then the second time. But now you can see that attempts to get back to the previous high are being met with more selling. And as a result, we are seeing a trend develop right here. So there's a good chance that this now becomes the new trend direction. And every time the market approaches that area, we have seen sellers come in and push prices lower. So it's also important to notice that from Friday's market performance and this morning's performance, then the market is trading within this channel. So if you are an intra-channel trader, then you might be interested in what price does once it gets to this area, especially if you see a strong entry by sellers, then you could squeeze in an intraday short selling position, and that is if the price rejects this area strongly. There's a question about clarity and sound breaking. I don't know if it's just one person or everyone, so kindly confirm on the comment section. Asian time starts from hot time to hot East African time. You can always use the baby pips clock. I'll show you this. So this is the forex market time zone converter, and as you can see, we have 4 sessions. We have the Sydney, Australia session. We have the Tokyo, Japan session, London in the Eurozone, and New York in the US. And now we're at the intersection between Tokyo and London session. So you can always check this live clock to confirm which session you're trading and what time it is. And I'll be sharing these in the live comment section. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time. I believe our time is up. And I'm seeing one last question. This is to check on Euro AUD. So normally we try to avoid the crosses because we have covered Euro USD, we have covered AUD USD. I don't know why we have to go through Euro AUD. So basically, Euro AUD is a derivative of the two currencies. That is the Euro USD and AUD USD. You can even confirm that by calculating the price from the previous two prices. So in this case, for Euro AUD, checking the currency pair right now. So this is how it looks like for our chart. So clearly, it's a market that has been changing direction. On one side, it was bullish momentum. Now it's bearish momentum, and it seems quite noisy to me. It's not like a clean market direction. So normally, what I will do when I'm trying to analyze from the top time frame to the low time frame, I will try to identify the recent swings. So I believe this was a good high and this was a good low. Sorry. And then I'll move on to a different time frame, let's say the 4-hour chart. Then I'll analyze based on last week's performance. And as you can see, that was the last week's high, and last week's low was here. Sorry, this is the previous 2 weeks. So last week, the highest price we saw was here, which was also acting as support here. Support turned into a resistance. The low of the previous week was all the way down here. So the low of the previous week, low of last week, high of last week, and then we focus on this week, which has just started today on Monday. So the key important price levels to be observing would be, of course, the previous high and this previous low. I'm just trying to map here. Then we try and observe if there's any trend lines on the chart. Then from here, it doesn't seem likely that this is a very strong trend line because it was already broken. So the best thing we can do is adjust the trend line to the new high. And now the high we have is along this path here. So in this case, we can assume that every time the market approaches this trend line, it finds resistance and moves backwards. Similar to what happened last week and today being Monday, then we are seeing something similar here. Market approaching that area, finding resistance, and potentially we could be seeing the market going for the lowest price that we saw on Friday, and perhaps even further making some bearish momentum. So that's it for the day. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you on the next session.